I keep forgetting my gavel. Welcome to the July meeting of the UGA Geological System. Another great turnout. Thank you all for coming today. So let's see, business items. Do we have any new members? Any visitors? Do we have any visitors? Welcome. Thanks for coming. Great place to see you. Goodbye. Just as a note, we do have recycling this time. Our treasurer is lollygagging in Europe at the moment, so we're kind of going informed, but that the chair back there with the black tie on, that's him. Appreciate it. Does anybody have any announcements? There is a save the date is for there's an upcoming conference on Lake Bonneville. Great. Okay on that. Anybody? Early October. I'm pretty sure it's October 3rd, 4th. Oh, great. Yeah, and we have an announcement for that too on our website. So, highly recommend it. It looks very exciting. It's in the, of course, Lake Bonneville. Any other? Let's see. Peter is he's still accepting papers for this excellent guidebook on geosites in Utah, where you just find a geological point of interest that's interesting and write it up, describe it. Peter, do you want to elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, we're having a great response so far. Please, what entails is that people have written a lot of stuff before because we're trying to fix sites that people have done field trips or everything else. A lot of the work's already been done with a little bit of modification. So if you can still think of a site or multiple sites that you'd like to put a presentation together for, please submit it to us. We're still accepting. We're at about 30 right now, and we'd like to get to 40 or 50. 40. Yeah, 40? 40. Okay. It's even gotten better since this morning, so that's good.
If you put in, you haven't gotten confirmation, just give me another day or so.
Yeah, we're still putting together. So, yeah, if you got something you've written up, we'd like to modify it, please submit it, because I think it'll work great. It looks to be really good. So, good guidebook. So we'll be up to go.
Very important.
Yeah.
Bill, do you want to take an update on the geological park?
Sure. We're fully funded now. The UGA has just put us donation and the official community geologists, Sinclair, Doyle, and then the Arts. Recreation Arts and First gave us fully funded. We're now we're just waiting for the geological survey is putting the illustrations hopefully ready and so hopefully when have a ribbon cutting ceremony and then on the recruitment for officers, we have someone running for each position there, but I really like that. So we haven't already volunteered. We did change the constitution so that we don't have it. It would be there for the first month. So let's say volunteer for this president. It does have to come.
information on us?
No, then I can look up.
No.
You guys find somebody to tell us.
I think our records want to Frank Hunter, the program chair, and first time. Thank you.
Hey.
Don't forget the picnic.
Oh, great, thank you. For that. So August 11th is the date that Roger has reserved for Christmas camp in St. Brunswick area up in Big Mountain Canyon. Please do attend the picnic. We'll have barbecue boys, and it's a great opportunity to mingle and hang out with members and really fun time. So, and that generally starts right around noon. Good way to escape this from Brunswick. Like Walmart, any other announcements that have, yeah, I did.
All right, we're so excited to have John Foster come speak to us all the way from the Magical Land in Moab. He is currently the executive director of the Museum of Moab, and he studied everything from Cambrian trilobite to other fossils like late Jurassic. He's been doing it from 1988, so well versed in fossils. He did graduate work at the South Dakota School of Science and Technology, as well as the University of Colorado. And he has authored a couple books. One of note is The Cambrian Ocean, World, Ancient Sea Life in North America, and Jurassic West, The Dinosaurs in the Morrison Formation. So we're so excited that he came to join us. Everyone give John a big welcome.
Thanks. Okay. Everybody can hear me, I assume? Very good. All right. We'll get back to this. I just had to throw up the reconstruction of the Cambrian of Utah here to start off with. Cambrian, of course, is one of the richest areas, particularly around here for trilobites, and that's what most members of the general public know, but this early part of the Paleozoic as well. Just contrasting here, the way trilobites are preserved in the Cambrian is, of course, have these guys that were picked up through chains at the Wheeler Amphitheater, and then, of course, they're the ones that get going for pry bars and everything like that, and try to get out very carefully. So there's a wide range of those, as we will see. For most people, the Cambrian explosion, which means the birth of shale, but there, we'll see there's, of course, a lot more out there. Part of that impression of the general public, of course, starts with Steve J. Wolf's book in '89, and as we'll see later, also there is a little bit of a reply to some of the points in that book in 1998 with Conrad Norris's book. These are two really good ones. Also, this guy is this little paperback field guide, but has got some really nice photos in it. And these photos are really good, but they're black and white. But that's two of the other key books about the Builder Shale itself. Moving beyond that, of course, you get into some of the things known as China, which are in this book from 2004 are in color, which is pretty amazing. And then this book, which came out in 2013, so Kevin Eden's reading, if anybody ever delves into that one. So just as an indication of how widely spread Cambrian rocks are, everything here is Sayre province. It's got some of the surface failure pastorists are ones that have Cambrian rocks. They're only known from wells. And there are more than this, but basically this time period is exposed all over the place. One of the most famous, of course, is down near the bottom of the Grand Canyon here, Tonto Group, but there are other ones all around. The Burrard Formation out in California, an old dump right outside Las Vegas. It's a charming little locality where you can dig next to mining truck tires and dead tile and old bathtubs and things like that. And occasionally someone will come ripping up the road in four-wheel drive and start doing donuts out there on the flats. But one day that we were here, it's near Nellis Air Force Base, of course, but this is literally a quarter mile from the northeastern edge of Las Vegas, right down there near strip malls and gas stations. But Nellis Air Force Base, just over the hill here, we were there one day when they were having an air show, so we got to dig while the Thunderbirds were buzzing right overhead. Oak Spring Summit, this is over near the town of Caliente in Nevada. There's a field formation way out by Tonopah in Nevada. You're getting into what are some deep water deposits there. Of course, around here in northern Utah and Idaho, the shale is very productive. And out east, there are a number of different places, particularly Tennessee and Georgia have some rocks that are essentially the same age as what we have in Utah. And some of the same animals, but they're just obviously a very different setting. The shale here is, you could mistake it for anything out of Utah or Nevada very easily, except that when you dig it up here in Georgia, it comes out like, not literally as a texture of wet toilet paper, but it is noticeably soggy when you take it out. It just feels damp, which is really weird. Of course, as you let it dry out, it will become very similar to what we have out here. Going farther out into Nevada again, the Rachel limestone is essentially the same age as the shale, but it's got deep water taxa. That's out near Area 51. Klondike Gap here is just into far eastern Nevada, not too far from Utah, and it's got a number of early timber taxa in it, some of which is quite big. So the Berkeley Shale itself is what most people know, and this is what has really given us the view and real diversity background. The main key, of course, with Berkeley Shale is that you get preservation that shows us the unmineralized skeletal material and the totally soft body text. So you get worms that have no hard parts whatsoever, and you get arthropods and parts of arthropods. Preserved here in the legs and antennas of the trilobites that you don't normally see, and then this entire animal with mineralized. So that's something that you don't normally see at most sites. So there's the Berkeley Shale, but then there are all these other formations and all these other areas in North America that also have soft body preservation. So there's a lot out there. The main key of why this is important, of course, is that 80% of the taxa at these sites is unmineralized. So that we know at the sites, if we go to, say, Klondike Gap, in the Chief Range of Nevada, we get trilobites, we get pilot, and we get brachiopods, and we see almost nothing else. Everything there is mineralized, and so we know based on the Berkeley Shale and other deposits that we're probably missing about 86% of the taxa that were there, because they were basically soft bodied or nothing. One of the key localities, of course, for that and Berkeley Shale anyway is Wall, California, and Columbia. But there are other formations that have soft body things. The Latham Shale in the Marble Mountains out in California has a lot of trilobites, but some rare soft body material. Get some out of the Comet Mine in the Piox Formation, and Miners Hollow in the Flint Shale above Brigham City, and then some of the really productive ones around here as well, the Wheeling Formation out in Pass Range, and then very close by in the Martin Formation. Wheat is right above that in the house range, and that's we've got some very unusual characteristics coming out of the alley in recent years. That's very well preserved trilobites. These guys appear basically as ghost images in the rock. They usually have about maybe a millimeter or so of matrix over them, so you just see a bump and you can kind of see the outline of them, but you actually have to take dolomite and aerobrasion and blast all that out. Most of the time, so still, once you get on top of that, luckily the exoskeleton is solidified, so it's pretty large. So right before that, of course, we have there's the Cambrian in red, and we have 88% of Earth history, of course, happened before that. And if we go into the older part of the lead up to this, we of course have some things that have been posed as early bacterial life from 4.5 billion years ago. As we get into the Proterozoic, we get things like stromatolites all over the place, of course. And weird things like these streams of beans, open glaciers, that people think may be eukaryotes, but nobody's really sure exactly what they are. And when we go to the very end, of course, just the Jackson type actin here, which we're probably living in a relatively peaceful ecosystem with algal mats on the bottom. Not very many of any predators, and most animals either feeding grazing or something like that. So the Cambrian itself, of course, is at the base of the Paleozoic and the Paleozoic, and it has been split into 4 series instead of the usual lower, middle, and upper. The bottom 2 are roughly, but not exactly, equivalent to the old lower Cambrian. And of course, the bottom of it has been extended down a little bit into a pre-trilobite time in Cambrian. And then the middle, series 3 is not exactly equivalent to the middle Cambrian, but it's pretty close. Of course, named by Adam Sedgwick back in 1835 from Wales. And the base of it now is signified by this trace fossil, not this one in particular, of course, but that particular species with a golden spike somewhere in Newfoundland. So here we have paleogeography of the time. This is based on about the middle Cambrian. So we have what is now essentially North America here, we're about there. And then other continents scattered around severe South America, Africa, Australia, Antarctica. And of course, we were just below the equator in the southern hemisphere. Here we have North America in its modern orientation, but there you can see the paleo equator and paleo north. And there are a bunch of sites around North America. These are not all of them, but it just shows how widely dispersed the localities are around North America. We go zooming in again on our part of the Colorado Plateau here. These are just a few sites from the Middle Cambrian in our area. A little bit of background on the physical setting there. Of course, carbon dioxide levels were quite a bit higher back then. So the average temperature was a bit higher than sea level was rising on average all the way throughout the year to quite a bit higher. Yeah. Of course, what most people know about Cambrian trilobites, most of what we know of the anatomy comes from the exoskeleton is mineralized here. It's actually a calcite exoskeleton in the dorsal part of it. The legs, which are unmineralized, would have been just regular chitin here, and then the antennas on either side, which close up the big back legs and back antennas. This is what we don't see in most specimens. There's also some specimens not from the Cambrian, but from New York here, where you have the trilobites upside down and hierarchized here with the legs all well preserved. But most of what we're seeing on the trilobites is the calcium itself. So some of the oldest trilobites in all of the world, in all of North America, of course, are from out near Tonopah, Nevada. These are some of the taxa that are from just before Olin Ellis itself, which is also a relatively primitive trilobite before they show up. There's two of these other odd taxa. This guy's got an almost oval, perfectly oval shaped head. These are coming out of Korea. These are all things that predate Olin Ellis as some of the earliest trilobites. So when early Cambrian Olin Ellis itself, there were also living things like Bristolia, and these guys are neat. They have these genal spines, which of course are not actually antennae. They are spines coming out the head. The third thoracic on most of the Olin Ellis is enlarged here. It has a spine on it, and a spine on the tail. So each of these guys would have had about 5 different spines coming off at once. Bristolia actually has no genal spines at all. Just has enlarged thoracic. It's a typical Olin Ellis species here. This is an unusual one. There are very few that elongate like that. This is one from Moon Wash out in Nevada. Another species that was just named relatively recently. It's been known for some time, recognized as separate from Olin Ellis really a while ago. And here again, the whole body here goes enlarged. Third thoracic segments. Another species from Olin Ellis, this guy has really elongated spines on almost all of the posterior thoracic. When we get into the Grand Canyon, get things like Glossopleura here, which is actually known from all over North America. This guy is also known from Grand Canyon. This is the type of specimen Memoria, which is very similar overall to Glossopleura. It has slightly smaller eyes, another specimen is very thin, black eye. Getting into the sponge shale, this is a species of Ammocephalus that is the same age as the Bright Angel shale and Grand Canyon. Spiny guys like Zachnioides here are known from sponge shale and others as well. This guy from California is very similar to Glossopleura. Also. And these are just a few from the Chisholm Mountains in Nevada, here's Zachnioides and Ammocephalus. Two other species, Glossopleura is missing its head. In the same taxa, this is getting up into slightly younger material, but these species are known from the Pioche Formation in Nevada, and these ones are just from Mexico. So the same taxa are pretty much all over the place. I showed a slide of the Rachel limestone here out in the Boom Range, and this is actually a different taxa from what you get in Sponge Shale, but this is further west, so it's out deeper water, so you're getting deep water species like this guy here, which is actually known from just slightly younger rocks out of the Georgia Shale, but also the deep water deposits like that. Speaking of which, here it is, that species. There is long full noses. This is from Georgia Shale, that has the Walnut Quarry itself. And then, of course, in the Wheeler Formation, this is the mascot for all trilobites everywhere in the world. So it's featured in pretty much every rock shop in the world. Aspiscus is also fairly well known. Going up in the margin formation, these guys are particularly large, and they're known for one really particular instance near margin pass. Getting up into the Wheaton formation, there are a number of things. This is a relatively rare trilobite type of finds on the beginning here, this guy has one of them partially broken off. Getting up into the late Cambridge and different taxa all over North America. This is stuff. So if we look at the different animal groups, in addition to the trilobites, the story really starts with British Shale and Charles Walcott, who found these back in 1909, starting at the Spain Walcott story. And if we start with the tree here, the three main groups of life, we're going to go first to the bacteria here with cyanobacteria, and there are layers in the Berger shale with these little wispy seaweeds, basically, cyanobacteria, all over the surface. So those are fairly common. You can even see fish that look a lot like that in the Smith shale. If we go into where the animals are, there is one branch in the eukarya. And we're going to start out before we get to animals in the eukarya. We're going to look at different types of algae. The algae seem to have been taking a beating recently, as many of them turned out to be not what we thought they were. Among the microscopic green algae, though, are these guys, which are fairly diverse and well known, even starting back in pre-Cambrian. And then we're able to track these through the Cambrian, that are essentially the basis contained within the water column. With seaweeds, however, we have a number of different forms of essentially green algae, except that this guy turns out now to be a hemichordate worm tube. There's another kind of green algae from Smith shale that turns out to probably be a small lobopod, or rather a very big one, I suppose. But there are at least some green algae left that are still being green algae. Most of the reason is people describe things, can't figure out exactly what it is. When in doubt, it's green algae. So if we move to animals themselves, we'll kind of work our way up through the tree here, starting with sponges. Of course, today they're very colorful, fairly diverse, but things were pretty diverse back in Cambrian too. This is one genus known from both the Smith shale and the Berger shale. There are at least 40 different species of sponges known just from the Berger shale. So it's a pretty diverse group. This is another bristly type of sponge, or part of it anyway, from out in the Wheeler Formation, house range. There are also, you can see a design there how small these guys are. These little tiny sponges with the bristles coming out like rays of the sun. There are about 20 of these on this one surface from out the margin of formation. Relatives of jellyfish and corals and things like that are just one step up on the tree here. And this is a site out in Wisconsin where you actually have jellyfish that really kind of sits like the beach surface. And then there are, this is almost hard to imagine what this thing is doing. Perfect side view here on setting planes that just did at the jellyfish from out the Martin Formation house range. There are also things that appear to have been like sea anemones. This is back in the PX formation, basically a long tube that would have had sea anemone-like animal at the top, and it has a lot. There are also corals in some places. In early Cambrian, there's a site out in western Nevada that has a number of actual coral heads. That's a kind of a reconstruction. Most of the reef systems actually have been chinosaurs, archaic diapids, and things like that. There have some coral heads as well. Looking at animal groups, starting with the first one here, the protostomes, go to flatworms, which look basically like this today. We don't have any that are known exactly to be, confirmed flatworms, however, but we do have some little things that are pretty common in the Wheeler Formation that look at least generally the shape of the flatworms that we have today. Moving up to brachiopods, these guys are still around today. You can see they live in what appears to be a pine shelf, completely different phylum and kind of little attachments they consider themselves at bottom with. Most formations around the western U.S. have brachiopods in them. Sometimes, by the dozens, that's our peak formation. Almost every piece you pull out of there has at least some brachiopods on it. Or they want to particularly dense with it. Moving up to annelids, particularly polychaetes back in Cambrian were pretty common. Maybe here with the shale. And there's different forms of polychaetes. There's a shale there, a very tiny one at the centimeter scale there. Quite small. Then mollusks are on that same branch. And these are some of the mollusks we have today: gastropods, bivalves, cephalopods, hydropods. Waxia is probably a mollusk, although it's roots. They're hyoliths, which are a little animal in color, with a little flap over the head. And nobody knows what these little things are for. They're just little tubes and shells. I'm not sure if they're feed appendage or if they're anchored animal or what. Problem, of course, with this is everything changes out every week. That is not a mollusk anymore. It's actually a correlate to probably closer to brachiopods than it is mollusks. These guys here are out of the Berger shale. They're similar, possibly within the group of monocotyledons here with modern, simple mollusks. We've got those guys. There are gastropods out of the early part of Cambrian. There are cephalopods. There are bivalves. Pretty much got everything the modern classes preserved. So we go up the other branch here. Crapulets are predatory worms, pretty big things that live in the ocean sediment today. There are several forms of Berger shale here. That's just kind of big like a zucchini or something, but it's actually a crapulate worm. The Toya here is sort of by the dozens in some bedding plants in Berger shale, the most common one. And then there are these other guys that are both Berger shale and the Wheeler Formation. Working our way up, we're getting into the lobopods here, or velvet worms, which today live in forest litter and things like that. Back then they were all green. And Genia is one of these guys. The famous one, it's upside down for a while, backwards. And then, okay, can anybody guess? No longer a lobopod. This is part of the anomalous hair appendage. That was just in the past 6 months or so. So keeping up with this is not a lot of fun. Relatives of arthropods, so we're up here basically just below the arthropod group, which is the biggest group in the entire time period. Ophidia, which everybody remembers, is the goofy one with 5 eyes and snorkel mouth, a pincher on the end that grab things, the rat, and the mouth within the queue, so it reach under a mouth and something. The two reconstructions here show the debate going on as to whether these guys have limbs underneath like lobopods do, plus the flaps on top, or if they just have the flaps with no appendage there. The debate is that there are things preserved in the fossils that structures basically that people are interpreting as either being, in this one it would be little diverticular basically with the gut going down there, and beautiful see it this way, so no, those aren't part of the gut, those are remains of limbs that are on there. But at least everybody agrees about the eyes, the snorkel, and then the flaps that have filaments and gill structures on them. Up the Mount Stephen trilobite bed is here, it's just out of sight here where the Walcott Port is, go 50 south here on the slope of the field in British Columbia, is where you have things like Novelcaris, your appendages, just relying on every six slab. They didn't have any idea what it was until it's one more Cleveland and realized that all of it went together. That you had an animal with flaps on the side and then tail flaps here and eyes and mouth. So it would have looked something like that. We could swim around. There are actually 7 different species of really Novelcaris in the Burgess Shale, and so it wasn't just Novelcaris stuff. There were a lot of different animals doing different things all from that same group. These are some modern arthropods. We're going into the true arthropods from the Cambrian now, so we're up here. Among those non-trilobites, you have things like Morella, which would look like that, with antennas, but then the kind of spike thing, 2 sets of them coming off of the ear, what look to be paddling appendages coming off the side. Bivalve arthropods like this guy, which similar to the photo down here, the modern ones, basically would have had a body and limbs and eyes and underneath this shell, 2-part shell draped over the back, basically. The abdomen kind of stuck out the back there. This is another one here from the spent shale. Here you can see an eye. And he's got spikes coming up by the end. You just barely make out some of the limbs tucked in underneath the shell there. This is another one. Ignore the trilobite head for the moment. Another one here has got kind of an articulated pattern, which they believe is so that the shell could be thinner but just as strong by having that little net pattern in it. And then, of course, they had spikes all around the edges. Raphia here, this is another one with the shell over it. There you can see the antenna and the limbs, and then the abdomen coming out here. This is a weird guy out of that tail. I'm not sure exactly what this guy looks like. He's kind of reconstructed, probably a little semi-millipede like thing falling around the bottom of the ocean there. Nobody's really sure because they might have 1 or 2 prophets of that. Other things known as the shale. These guys are as well, several different specimens. This guy is also known as the Burgess Shale, but also known from the spent shale. Just described that in the past 2 years for the spent shale. This is the stem solicitor of the Burgess Shale. This thing is called Sanford Claws, CLAWS. Originally, this is where it came up partly in the name. But that's an interesting looking one. You can't really see much here, but here's basically the flat back part of the tail and the main body, and then the eyes up here. Mine is hollow. Here he is shown feeding the dead and Novelcaris in the shale area. Another odd arthropod there that has the shield over it. The new photo there. This is another one known pretty small, under centimeters on the scale here, but that's how real formation range there. And this thing, there's only one specimen of it out of the entire formation, and nobody's sure exactly what it is. It's described as an arthropod that's instead of most trilobites and other arthropods that we have out of the Cambrian have basically each appendage has 2 branches to it. And try to, like, one is walking leg, one is kind of a feather-shaped thing that you use to circulate water around and run over the gills on the bottom side of their body. And things like insects, millipedes, and only they don't have that second branch. They don't have a walking leg. And this thing is proposed as being closer to insects and millipedes, things like that. Basically interpreting each of these as being a body segment that has a single set of legs on it. And nobody's really sure what it is, but there's only one specimen. It stays down cut off down here. And nobody can make out enough detail to figure out what this is. So this is one of those things that we're kind of still looking for to try to figure out exactly what it is. Another one on the margin. This is out of the curve of shale. It's kind of a side view. Arthropods, there's more than a margin. And then the wheat has got a bunch of odd arthropods as well. Mostly, you can see them in dorsal view here with these, some preservation of the structure we've got. That one is a little harder to make out. But on this one, you can see this guy in the side view pretty well. And then, of course, there are all the trilobites, which we're going to talk about. So moving on to bigger stones, which include things like honeyderbs, that is out on this branch to the right. And then the honeyderbs we have things related to sea cucumbers. Elgonia here from the Berger Shale is basically, here we have the feeding structure, essentially a bunch of tentacles around the mouth. And then the gut is curled around, and you have the anus right next to the mouth, essentially a mandible with a disc shape. So if you go and you take this sea cucumber and you spin it around in a big loop and then flatten out its body so it turns into a disc like a jellyfish, that's essentially what you get. And they thought that these things floated around like jellyfish instead. But then in China, they found some where they were basically upside down from what we thought, and they were in the sediment on the bottom of the oceans. And so now it looks like here's that typical feeding structure with the mouth, and then the gut spins around here, anus is over there, and then the rest of the animal is filled into this big disc that sits at the bottom. And these are known from various formations throughout the rest of the country. There are also sea urchin-like animals, this thing from the Berger Shale called Walcopodiscus. You can see the radial arms there, basically kind of there, preserved in the same. It's a little distorted, but it's more or less circular. And there are a lot of these in Chisholm Formation out here in UGA also. Then there are the relatives of the crinoids. These are theocrinoids. Both of these specimens here are out of the Wheeler Shale. There are ones known from Chisholm, South Nevada, which show the little attachment stem there, and then the main body with the plates on it, and then the individual feeding appendages. Another one out of the margin, and then that's what these guys would have looked like, basically living on the bottom, attached, and just still feeding on the water there. Moving on to hemichordates, this is where we get into a few other things. So for a long time, you remember I was talking about the hit the green algae from taking. This guy was thought to be the green algae for a long time, and then we found some specimens where along with these other ones from various formations around the West turned out to be related to these guys, which are terebranchs, which are basically colonial substitutes for small hemichordate worms that one lives in each of these little tubes. So yet another green algae seaweed that turned out to be something else. And then of course there's this guy, which is actually green algae for a while too. And actually it turns out to be a big tube of a very large hemichordate worm. written on the bottom. This is known from everything burger sales and dealers and related sales. It's actually a pretty common thing. Then there are core dates. Here, Paideia, of course, for the vertical shale, it's one of those where we have a reconstruction of it with the individual muscle segments and notochord, and nobody's really sure exactly what these structures are, whether they're gill slits or something like that. So it all works out as pretty typical chordates. There's actually a type from the vertebrate shale that's the chordate turns out to be an actual vertebrate. It's essentially a jawless fish now. It's known for that. Then there are the weird things. Nobody has. You can see this guy has got this kind of flattened tail and then body with seemingly little lateral fins sticking out the side. Kind of a large head with what looks like something. Champaloria here, one from the Burgess, one from the Wheeler. You can see these individual strides. If we zoom in on these, the little star-shaped things with a hole in the center, for a while these were thought to be parts of the chondroderms or something like that. They're actually totally different things. So it's some kind of animal. Ethologically, it was probably like a sponge, but nobody knows exactly what it actually was. And there are these guys, from the Pearson Cove and the Mantia out of Spent Shale. Nobody's really sure exactly what that is. It again looks like a trophy goblet or something. Nobody sure what that is either. We put these things on here. The best guess is the last two are some type of deuterostone. They're not obviously chordates or chordates or anything like that. Champaloria is actually thought possibly to be some kind of mollusk. And then the other guy, nobody has any idea at all where that guy is. So, going through the whole question of why we have so many animals there, of course, they need to develop the genetic capability to diversify, the right oxygen levels, other conditions need to be there, and then past a few ecological thresholds, grazing which happened in the Ediacaran and the food finger and the predation came along. The whole thing that has been cascaded essentially was inevitable. So basically, the view of all these texts has gone through three main phases. The first one being back in Walcott's day, seeing each taxon as being part of a modern phylum. And when Walcott described most of these things, he basically gave what his best guess was. But he was implying that they were essentially members of modern classes in individual phylum. That changed in the 70s when we started recognizing more about these things and went into what's called the Weird Wonders phase, where they were believed to represent unique taxa that were not part. The reason that they didn't look exactly like modern fauna or phyla was that they didn't actually belong to them, and that many of them may have represented entirely unique phyla. Current view, of course, is that they represent distinct stem taxa, but fit within existing phyla. So stem taxa, of course, are, as an example here, with the mollusks. Each of these groups here, chitons and bivalves, and all these guys, are all main classes of mollusks that are around today. And except for chitons, the genera here, each of these is a Cambrian representative of each of those groups. So those are all members of what we would call the crown group here. All the groups that are still surviving today. And something like Waxy, which is believed to be a mollusk, doesn't actually fit within any of these frequency of stem taxon, but it still fits within the monarch file. So if we look at phase one we didn't really have, just back to Walcott Day, we have very little from the Precambrian in terms of fossil records. And so everything just kind of suddenly appears in all the modern phyla, and that's where everything fits in. Phase two is a little bit more like this, where by now we knew of some taxa in the Precambrian, things diversified, all these different body plans, and everything that's basically culled. A lot of, like 70% of the phyla go extinct, and this is just what you have left today in the time. Phase three, which is how we see it a little bit more now, is that we still have those things appearing early, we have things diversifying, they diversify within or out to the modern phyla, and then things continue along from there. And there was not a great pulling down from 100 phyla down to 30. But it was just all the diversification of body plans happened in the first half of the Cambrian, and that's pretty much it. So, for example, here are the next two slides. These are the different phyla of animal body plans. Here we have what's read in the Precambrian, and here the Cambrian, and of course they continue on. And you can see all of these appear in the Cambrian or are probably represented. There are only three that we have no sign whatsoever of in Cambrian. So that all of these body plans appear in the Cambrian and then continue right along till today. So this is what it would basically look like if we did the cumulative number of phyla. Everything appears there except for a few relatively recent ones, as far as we know. But there are very few additions to the number of phyla, and it does not appear that any of them disappear completely. So Gould was summarizing some early work by others when he basically popularized the phase two view of things, which that cumulative curve would have gone like this. We had this dropping right at the end of the Cambrian, and we basically go from 100 to 30. There's no pattern of exceptions in that. Of course, if you re-ran the history of life, it would have different results. That was Gould's argument there. Now, the counterpoint to that is Conway Morris did back in '98. He was pointing out that convergence was rampant within the animals. They were designed to fit origins. So, dolphins, for example, a gopodont mammal from Jurassic in China, which is very much like a beaver. Fruitifossils is a burrowing Jurassic mammal, very similar to ground-dwelling insects eating modern mammals. So sort of that, of course, saber tooth marsupial. Basically, his argument was that there's multiple runnings in history of life, you end up with the same animals. But that may not be that big of a question, just because, as Conway Morris was also arguing, this was something that he had been a part of. Some of his data is what Gould used to argue that we had all these unique phyla back in Cambrian, and that they must have gotten weeded down. But Conway Morris had changed his mind. And by '98, he was of the opinion that these things were stem taxing within existing phyla. And so that wasn't even the case anymore. And so maybe it didn't matter. But this was really what happened, that you had the diversification all in Cambrian, and essentially stability before and after. This is kind of rhetorical, though. It would still be interesting to see what would happen if you reran biological history, but as it refers to the argument Gould is making, it may not really be a question. So what happened after the Cambrian? If we go from basically 488 million years ago to the modern world, of course, this is where we end up with coral reefs, and these are, of course, descendants of
Yeah, the origin of animals track right before the Camera itself is the explosion in body size modification. Then it was during ordination that you get the increase in the species and the complexity of the ocean ecosystem increase. So, at least for us animals, Cambrian is the period in geologic history, at least from the biological perspective. So, real quickly, early Cambrian, here we have two of the things we've seen. Okay, so this is how recent Margaretia being a hemichordate worm tube, the recent stuff here is algae. Methyl. Some of the predatory worms, these are the guys were similar to anemones, Volumella trilobites here, pilot, brachiopods, and Harris. Here we have it in a shallower carbonate shoal here with darkly acid around. Very shallow shoal near Grand Canyon. Getting up in the Middle Cambrian, and of course the slide I started with the reconstruction of northern Utah as that shale. There are about 22 different species in there. Most of them are okay except for this green algae here again. Yeah, that's the one that turned into gold clouds. So, you can't stay out of communication for more than a week or so if something changes. And then this reconstruction is deeper wheel shale here out stream. And of course, the shoreline out in Wisconsin has pretty big waves and islands. Pretty interesting. Most of what you've seen here, most of the photographs that I recorded a few years ago, and thank you all for this.
You have any questions?
So who was eating who? Were these essentially all herbivores per se, or were there some true carnivores? There were, yeah, there were certain types of trilobites that were probably carnivorous, and then there were a lot that were detritus eaters and eating in the sediment itself. Some of the arthropods, the weird non-trilobite arthropods, appear to have been carnivores also, and then Anomalocaris itself, I mentioned there were several different species of those guys. Some of those were probably carnivorous on harder shelled things like trilobites, but Anomalocaris itself, which is usually stated to be the terror of seas and everything, it appears to have had a relatively soft mouth. And it was probably grabbing worms and things like that with appendages and sucking them up into its mouth. Probably was not the one responsible for trilobite, calcitic exoskeleton. There were probably other anomalocaurids or other arthropods. Not yet, no. Yeah, the closest one I said was called Santa Claus. There's that and a couple others that are along the short line, getting close, but not quite to anything recognized. No, you can hike to it. It's about a day hike. It's not the easiest to control ever, but it's doable easily. Yeah, the Mount Stephen trilobite beds, which are the one I showed that was just south, but that's really short, but it's almost straight up. The trail goes up a moraine. to get to it. And it doesn't switch back, it just goes straight up with. So yeah, there's actually a kind of a Friends Group nonprofit organization based out of Field that runs hikes up to the walk back towards the public. So those are they're open and it's pretty much you're doing it is, yeah, go for it. Thanks.
All right, let's give John another hand.